so he wouldn't want his death to be pitied, even if it was caused by a ridiculous powerhouse like Fleo. And besides, if he didn't want to die, then he shouldn't have let himself get killed. Rhys fell in love with him for his strength, so regardless of who he has killed, her feelings about him won't change one bit. Just then, they realized that their entire conversation was overheard by the knights, so they
I believe in myself.
now know that Rhys is the same demon Fenris that nearly killed them in the beginning, so they are all even more scared of her, especially Bilary. Seeing that Fleo is a major threat to the Dark Army, Liminus asks if she can have a match with him so she can see how strong the man Fenris Mary truly is. She believes she can take both of them down at once this way, but Rhys isn't going to let it happen because she thinks Liminus is trying to steal her man. Fleo eventually agrees to the match, and the rules are set so that magic is allowed and it will go on until someone surrenders. Liminus thinks she has this in the bag as she leaps into the air and casts one spell to distract Fleo, while another one comes from below. However, Fleo dispels both in an instant and counters with his own spell, which ties Liminus up in the air. She is unable to move or defend herself, so she surrenders. The next day, Fleo has a much-needed talk with the knights and apologizes for not telling them who Rhys actually is because he thought it would cause trouble. He understands if they wish to report him to the castle, but Fenris tells them that she has completely devoted herself to Fleo, so she isn't a part of the Dark Army any longer. Valley agrees that they would normally have to report this to the castle, but given the fact that Rhys isn't a threat anymore and has been helping them for the last month, they may just forget to mention this to the king. Rhys is glad to hear this, but then her attention is drawn outside as Liminus has returned and she's being a sore loser, so she brought a whole dragon army to defeat Fleo. However, instead of fear, Fleo is more so amazed because this is his first time seeing dragons in person. Liminus orders the dragons to fire at him, so Fleo counters by striking them all down with his magic. In an instant, the strongest dragon army of the Dark One has been reduced to a pile of bodies, and the ones that manage to survive mope the hell out of there since they aren't getting paid enough for this. Blossom tells him he is amazing for being able to handle that many dragons at once, and if she knew it was going to be that easy, she would have thrown her hoe at one of the dragons so she could get the Dragon Slayer title, but Fleo doesn't see a reason why she can't still try. He tells her to throw her hoe at one of the dragons, and as she does so, he buffs the attack, making it powerful enough to pierce through a dragon's neck. She manages to get the title, so the others all rush to Fleo to ask for his help as well, but all the dragons have already left, so they are out of luck. Meanwhile, Lord Gull of the Dark Army has been watching everything and is shocked that Fleo possesses so much power despite not being the hero, so he decides to go and challenge him personally to end this. After their last unwanted guest, Fleo decides to put up a barrier around his house so he will be able to tell as soon as anyone steps foot on their land. Rhys is glad that they now have a security system, so if Liminus attempts to come back here again, she'll send her packing immediately. Even just thinking about her makes Rhys really mad, but Fleo tells her to calm down since it's not that big of an issue. Rhys doesn't get why Fleo is being so kind to Liminus when she was the one who attacked him first, but it's not so much that Fleo is trying to be nice to her. It's more so because he feels guilty for accidentally killing all those demons in the Delaveza forest without knowing. However, he keeps his guilt to himself and tells Rhys it's nothing, so they both get ready to head back home. Meanwhile, back at the house, the girls are all still staring at Blossom's status screen, and Blossom is humbly bragging that she has the Dragon Slayer title. While they are all still admiring it, Valorosa leaves the group and says she is heading off to hunt for the day. The others think it is noble that she is so dedicated to her training, but in reality, she left so she could cry her eyes out because she wanted the Dragon Slayer title too. The Dragon Slayer title is something so extraordinary that every adventurer works really hard in order to get it at some point, but Blossom just got it for free. However, while she was still sulking, she is approached by a man from behind, and he asks for directions because he is here to meet an old friend of his. Valorosa finds it strange that someone would be out in a forest full of magical beasts with such little gear, so she remains cautious and asks who he is here to meet while gripping her blade. The man answers that he is here to see Rhys, but if that's the case, then Valorosa deduces that he must be a part of the Dark Army and draws her sword on him. She asks what business he has with Rhys, so the man explains that he doesn't want any trouble, and just came here to catch up with her. But if he's not welcome, then he'll take his leave for now. But he asks Valorosa to deliver a message for him and asks Rhys if she would be willing to have a chat with him over some tea. Valorosa accepts his request, but before he leaves, she asks what his name is, so the man responds, saying he is called Gozel. A little while after he left, Fleo and Reese come running up to Balarosa and ask if she is alright. Balarosa says she is fine, but a member of the Dark Army was just here looking for Riz. He said his name was Gozel, so Riz immediately knew who it was, but she thinks he could have chosen a better fake name than Gozel. Fleo and Reese came here as fast as they could because the barrier picked up something odd, but what they saw when they got here shocked them. Balarosa was threatening someone whose status said he was the Dark One. So in other words, Gozel could have folded her with a sneeze if he wanted to, but he chose to be civil. His real name is Gaul, and now that Balarosa realizes what she did, she's terrified that he may come back for revenge against her later. The next day, Gozel shows up at their front door and Reese is surprised he actually showed up after all. Fleo greets him and invites him to join them for tea inside, but Gozel finds it strange that Fleo is so calm in the presence of the Dark One. As they walk down the hall, Balarosa comes out to go hang some laundry, but then she sees Gozel and he feels like getting some payback for earlier, so he drags her into the meeting with Fleo and Reese, and she's sitting right next to him, so she's scared out of her mind. Reese asks Gozel if he is here for revenge, but he has another purpose for coming here. He wants to recruit Fleo to join the Dark Army. Fleo is a little confused by his request, but Gozel is dead serious, so Fleo gives his honest answer and declines the offer. Gozel is disappointed that Fleo refused his offer, but he asks why he isn't fighting on the side of the humans if he doesn't want to join the Dark Army. Fleo sees no reason to side with humanity just because he is human, plus he has got some personal beef with the king for summoning him here and trying to get rid of him. On top of that, he doesn't even know the reason for this whole war since he's not from this world, and no one ever explained it to him. Gozel takes it upon himself to explain the war to him. Although it has been going on for so long that there are a few people who still remember the actual reason the war started in the first place, but as far as Gozel knows, it started when the first Dark One arrived in this world after being transported here. He was rejected by the humans, so he rose to power among the demons who accepted him as their ruler since they were being oppressed by the humans at the time. That's how the war started, but the longer it dragged on, the more ill will accumulated, and stopping it will become almost impossible without one side being eradicated. Fleo asks Gozel if he wishes to stop the war, and Gozel confirms as much, stating that he has no intention of taking over the world like the first Dark One, but he is the king of the demons, and he can't just let his people be put under threat of destruction at the hands of the humans. He unleashes his demonic pressure and asks Fleo once more to join him, but Fleo remains unfazed and reiterates that he has no intention of siding with the humans or demons in this war. Seeing that Fleo is going to be changing his mind on the matter anytime soon, Gozel accepts his decision and gets up to leave, but he makes it clear that this doesn't mean he has given up on winning Fleo over to his side. As he leaves, Gozel thinks to himself that he never would have imagined that he would find someone who could withstand his presence so easily, and she didn't even throw up on herself, so Gozel now has an interest in Balarosa. As he leaves, the other girls come over to check if Balarosa is still sane after what she just went through, and she is definitely going to need some therapy to process this. Balarosa settles for the next best thing and just stays in bed the whole day, so the next morning when she wakes up, she walks downstairs and greets everyone, only to find Gozel in the kitchen having breakfast with Fleo and Reese. Reese still doesn't like him being here, so she wants him to just eat his food and leave, but Fleo thinks she's being too rude to him. Gozel spots Balarosa and says she should come eat with him, but she doesn't want a repeat of yesterday, so she makes up an excuse about needing to get herself dressed first and runs away. But that just makes Gozel more interested in her. Later, she tries to sneak out of the house so she doesn't run into him again, but he was already onto her, so he was waiting outside the door. He tells her he would like to have a chat with her, but she is still really scared of him, so she uses her sword training as an excuse to run away again. The next day, Gozel approaches her again, but she still finds more excuses to avoid him, although that won't stop him from pursuing her. While all this was going on, some spies of the king had been watching Fleo's house and reported that a demon has frequently been visiting him for unknown reasons. The king is enraged that Fleo would ignore his summons, but would then go and join the demons, so he is ready to send soldiers after him. However, the first princess, who is apparently the only voice of reason in the castle, tells the king that it is a bad idea to send soldiers after Fleo now since they don't know for sure if he actually sided with the demon army or not. And it's just a bad idea in general to antagonize a person who is so powerful. The king refuses to listen to logic and common sense, and things don't get any better because the blonde hero arrives in the throne room, single-handedly dropping the average IQ of the room by 20 points. He has come here with the brilliant idea to force Fleo into fighting in the war, so he asks to be given some soldiers to go and threaten him, because that's totally going to work out in his favor. Over in the Demon Kingdom, Gozel is about to head out to Fleo's house once more, but Euliminus doesn't think it's such a good idea since Fleo is really dangerous. But Gozel doesn't see it that way since Fleo is actually a really understanding person. A lot better than the king who just ignores reason in favor of violence. If he has any chance to win Fleo over, then it would be in his best interest to take it. However, he hasn't forgotten about the ongoing war and is making plans to have his troops move out soon. Meanwhile, back at Fleo's house, he has been working on a prototype of some new equipment made of dragon scales so he can sell them in town. It will take a while before he can make it good enough to be sold, but once he's done, they'll be able to make a decent income off it. Reese asks Fleo if he's sure he made the right decision in rejecting the king's offer to fight, because at least that way he would receive far better rewards than anything he gets now, and he wouldn't need to worry about money. It wouldn't have been hard for him with the abilities he possesses, so she asks if he chose not to fight the demon army because she is a demon. Fleo tells her that it's not because of that, but rather because he knows he possesses incredible power, so he could probably destroy the human or demon kingdom if he wanted. With that much power, he doesn't want to fight anyone as long as he doesn't have to. Just then, they hear a knock at the door, and Reese is sure it must be Gozel again, but Fleo's barrier didn't detect any demons in the vicinity, so it can't be him. As Fleo goes to answer the door, he is greeted with the unpleasant sight of the blonde hero's face and an army of soldiers. He tells Fleo that he has two choices here. Either he can choose to become his subordinate and help defeat the Dark One, or the blonde hero will declare him a Dark Army informant and cut him down immediately. The hero really thinks he accomplished something with his statement, so he is basking in the glory of his own ego. However, Fleo just tells him, "No, I don't think I'll do that." He makes it clear that he doesn't want to fight in the war at all, so he won't be siding with either the kingdom or the Dark Army, but that just makes the hero threaten him as a traitor. The girls speak up and say it's unfair to decide that on his own since Fleo is most certainly not a traitor, but that's exactly what traitors would say, so he threatens to arrest all of them for treason as well. Since he went and involved everyone else in this, Fleo decides that if he can't stay here without fighting, he'll just go somewhere else. If Fleo is leaving, then everyone else says they will go with him as well. Since everyone is in agreement, Fleo casts his teleportation magic to move everyone, as well as the house and land. The hero is stunned by Fleo's ability to use teleportation magic, so he is starting to realize that he may be the inferior one here. Just then, the soldiers spot the man they believe to be a demon, so the hero tries to salvage the situation and orders his men to capture the demon. Gozel is confused why there's a huge hole where Fleo's house used to be, but when he is surrounded by soldiers from the kingdom, he realizes that they must have forced Fleo to leave the area, and he is really angry about it. So much so that he vows to teach them a lesson and calls for his troops to immediately begin their assault on the Clyrode kingdom. Back at the demon castle, Euliminus, as well as all the other demons, heard the declaration of war, so they all awaken to fight. Seeing this, the hero does the only thing he knows how to do and runs away while leaving his soldiers to die. Meanwhile, Fleo has successfully relocated his house to a plot of land near a village called Hauto. Fleo came here a while ago to sell some dragon scales in town, and since it's really far from the capital, there's no way that either the hero or the Dark One will be able to find them, which especially relieves Balarosa because she didn't want the Dark One to end up proposing to her. Fleo apologizes to Reese for having to move so suddenly, but she doesn't mind where they go as long as she gets to stay by his side, and to celebrate their relocation, she decides to cook a wonderful feast for Fleo and the others, which they are all excited for. After Gozel had the order to begin invading the kingdom, several attacks have been carried out as they made their way through the kingdom's outposts. The situation has gotten so dire that the king receives reports saying that the northern barrier may not be able to hold them back much longer. It's at times like this that the kingdom would need their hero to stand up and fight for them, but unfortunately, the wimp went and locked himself in a fortress on the other side of the country so that he wouldn't have to fight. The king expected as much from that coward, but he's the best they've got, so he orders for him to be summoned here immediately. In the meantime, he orders for the mages to be assembled in the capital so they can cast a purification to handle the demons, but that plan isn't without its own risks, since if the northern stronghold were to fall while they were casting the spell, it would be completely defenseless. Meanwhile, outside the kingdom's barrier, the Dark One is overseeing the invasion efforts when he receives a report from his subordinate Greenel, who tells him that the preparations he asked for have been made. Hearing this, Gozel tells Euliminus that it's time to withdraw from the battlefield, but she is confused about why he wants to retreat when they are the ones with the advantage here. Gozel explains that the king is likely planning to use large-scale purification magic soon, and he doesn't want any of his demons getting eradicated by it. So as the king and his mages all gather together to cast the purification spell, they indeed manage to activate it, but it helps them kill a total of 0 demons since everyone already left. On to more interesting topics, Fleo is still on the other side of the country from the war, and has just returned home to Reyes, who is really happy to see him, almost a little too enthusiastic, so Fleo is feeling slightly concerned. Everyone gathers for dinner, and Reese asks Fleo how business went today and if he managed to find any buyers for his wares, but he hasn't really gotten to advertise any of his products yet since he is still just scoping out the competition. He needs to know what the average quality and prices are for this area before he does anything, and Blossom seems to have been considering selling her vegetables in town as well to at least pay Fleo back for letting them live here for free. Fleo assures them that he doesn't require payment for their accommodation. Meanwhile, over in the castle, the priest tells the princess that the purification spell they cast will have an effect for the next 3 months. So during that time, the demons won't be able to continue with their attacks. However, if things go on like this, the kingdom won't be able to hold out. Many of the mages have been sent into comas from having their mana depleted after casting the purification spell, and they'll need at least 2 or 3 months to recover. And while the king is respectable for doing his part to activate the spell, it also left him in a state of incapacitation, so he won't be able to do any more until he recovers. As such, until he wakes up, the princess will assume the duties of ruler. And the first thing she's going to do with her new authority is fire the blonde hero from his position as hero. The kingdom was on the brink of destruction a few moments ago, yet the hero didn't bother to lend his aid, nor did he even leave the stronghold he is hiding in. The retainers are all hesitant to agree since they can't go to war without a hero, but it's not like the current one was being of any help, so they ask if she wants them to begin preparations for another hero summoning. Unfortunately, with most of their mages down for the count, they aren't going to be able to complete another summoning spell, so they'll need to consult the Oracle for help. A while later, the former blonde hero has just received the news that his hero status has been revoked, so he is now just the blonde loser. He tries to argue his way back into the stronghold by saying he was appointed by the king to be the hero, but the guard is sick of his shit, so he just dumps his stuff in front of him and walks away. That night, while Fleo and Reese are in bed, he asks if she's still asleep, and when she responds, he tells her that he's thankful for everything she's done for him. He knows it must be hard enough for her to live with humans to begin with, but she also pushes herself to do the housework and act as his wife, so he is really grateful for it since there's no way he would have had such a peaceful life if he were alone. Coincidentally, the next morning, all the girls decide to do something special for Fleo and Reese, so they tell them that they'll handle all the housework for today, so Fleo is free to go out on a date with Riz. Riz is certainly excited by the idea, but Fleo is hesitant because he has never been on a date before. However, he's already married to Reese, and there's no backing out now, so he is dragged off for a day of fun in town. He and Reese go out and do a lot of fun date things, later arriving at a market where there are a bunch of rare items on display. Fleo wants to thank Riz for all the help she has given him, so he tells her that she can pick out anything she wants and he'll get it as a gift for her. She is really happy that Fleo wants to give her a gift, so they spend some more time walking around and looking for something Riz likes until eventually they come across this stall selling jewelry, which would make a perfect gift for Riz. So Fleo picks out a blue brooch that matches Riz's general colors, and she absolutely loves it. So much so that she spends the entire night just staring at the wonderful gift she received. The other girls find her behavior a little odd, but she did say something about the brooch being a precious gift from Fleo, so they can understand why she's so happy. But they are also very jealous as well. Later that same night, Fleo was in bed trying to sleep, but he felt two soft things pressing up against his body, so he opened his eyes and found Riz hugging him tightly. He is embarrassed that he's now sharing a bed with Riz, so he asks her what exactly it is that she's trying to pull. But then he realizes that she's already out cold from exhaustion, and they did have a pretty packed day together. Meanwhile, the blonde loser has somehow managed to break into the castle treasury unnoticed, and is currently digging through the stockpile as a last-ditch effort. His side piece is still sticking beside him mostly because she wants to see what happens and if the blonde loser can somehow regain his status. And rather than just accept that he's no longer the hero and do something like steal a chest full of valuables to live the rich life, he's instead searching for the items in hopes of finding something that can kill the Dark One, as if the kingdom wouldn't have used it already if it was here. As he continues searching, he thinks back to the amazing magic he saw Fleo use to get away from him, and he is still frustrated by the idea that a commoner can use magic far greater than anything he can pull off. If only he were blessed by the plot armor gods, then maybe he could actually be capable of holding the title of hero. His rant of self-pity seems to have drawn the attention of some unknown entity, and this entity speaks directly to the blonde loser, telling him that he can grant him the immense power he wishes for, and all he needs to do is come into this spooky and clearly dangerous hidden. Inside, he finds a sword and a stone which the voice tells him to pick up, and if he does, he will receive the power he wants so desperately. There are a lot of red flags being raised, but the promise of power is too great for him to pass up, so the blonde loser pulls the sword from the stone, and immediately after, he is blown back. Once things settle down, a woman named Haya is standing before him, and she proclaims herself to be a djinn who commands light and darkness before asking if the blondie is the one who freed her from her prison. He is scared at first, but once he understands the situation, he stands up and confirms that he is the one who set her free. Haya is thankful for his service, so she promises to grant him any 3 wishes he desires, and with a promise of anything he wants, Blondie knows exactly what he wants to do. Meanwhile, back in the castle, the princess has summoned the Oracle Ashura to assist her in saving the kingdom. And since they don't do this often, Ashura knows shit must have hit the fan really bad. The only thing protecting the kingdom right now is the effects of that purification spell, so they need to figure out what to do before it wears off. The princess wants Ashura to try and look into the future to see the best course of action, but before Ashura can look into the future, black collars appear around the heads of everyone in the room. No one understands what's going on since they can't take the collars off, but the princess knows exactly what this means, so she orders the guards to go down to the treasury because someone is down there messing with powers they don't comprehend. In the meantime, Ashura explains that the collars around everyone's necks are called the collars of sacrifice, and it is used by a particular djinn when she's granting a wish. The purpose of the collar is to take the heads off the victims once the wish is granted, but the people have no idea why anyone would use something so dangerous. The princess tells them that long ago, a former king of Clyrode had used the djinn to make a wish to defeat the Dark One of the time, but while his wish was granted, it is said that half of all living things on the continent were sacrificed as a result. For the efforts of many of the greatest mages in the country, the djinn was successfully sealed away so that a catastrophe like that would never happen again. The seal isn't one that is easy to break, but it seems like whoever managed to free the djinn has already made a wish, and that means everyone here is doomed. The princess says they have time to live until the djinn grants this person's wish, so she asks Ashura to find out the best way to avoid dying here. Ashura understands and begins looking for a solution to their predicament, and a few moments later, she has found the answers to all their problems. To prevent the sacrifice from taking place, they need to find the true hero who has already been summoned. The retainers immediately guess that the true hero must be the guy they failed to recruit to their side, so they are ready to go contact Fleo, who is located in the west according to Ashura. The Goat Man wants to send every single soldier available to look for Fleo, but the princess knows they can't afford to divide the units that have been tasked with defending the kingdom, so instead, she says she will personally look for Fleo. Meanwhile, Fleo is in a weapon shop and has just shown his completed dragon scale shield to the owner, who is really impressed. He can tell that the weapon is made of genuine dragon scales, but it is rather rare, so Fleo makes an excuse about having a top secret supplier he acquires this stuff from. The shop owner agrees to buy this shield for any price that Fleo wants to sell it for, but under the condition that Fleo sell any other weapons he has in stock to the shop. Fleo is more than happy to agree to that, but he also has a request for the shop owner to direct him to the most trustworthy wholesaler he knows. The shop owner agrees to direct him to the best wholesaler he knows, and all the while, Riz and Balarosa are watching Fleo work and are really impressed by his negotiation skills. Balarosa, for one, is really jealous of Riz for having Fleo as her husband, but Riz gets jealous and was about to decapitate her on the spot for thinking about stealing Fleo from her. Balarosa tries to de-escalate the situation by explaining that she just meant she would love to have a man like Fleo. But if that's the case, Riz reminds Balarosa that Gozel is infatuated with her, so there's always an option, but Balarosa has mixed feelings about her admirer being the Dark One. Fleo exits the shop soon after and walks over to Balarosa to thank her for introducing him to this place. They start leaving and Riz expresses how wonderful she thinks it is that Fleo's business is going well, but she's a little sad that he will have less time to spend with her overall, so she asks that he try to make time for them to hang out together. Fleo is happy to make time for Riz, however, a moment later, he receives a warning from the system telling him that a djinn is approaching. He turns around and finds Haya floating there, and after confirming that the man before her is indeed Fleo, she prepares to fulfill the wish of Blondie. And that is to murder Fleo because he didn't have enough brain cells to think of something better. Riz realizes what's about to happen, so even though Fleo's system deploys an automatic defense shield, she runs out in front of him and ends up getting slashed in the process. Fleo is in shock from what he just witnessed, but all the djinn can think about is how she happened to miss her intended target, so this time she decides to fire spells all around in order to make sure Fleo dies, but his automatic defense magic is able to block it all. While he and Balarosa are panicking over Riz's fatal injury, he tries to use his healing magic to help her recover, but the system informs him that the wounds she has sustained are too grave to be healed. At the same time, the djinn casts her most powerful Origin of Light spell to take down Fleo, but once it is complete, not only is he unharmed, but the system also manages to acquire the Origin of Light and Darkness magic. Fleo lets down Riz's corpse to stand up and fueled by rage, The only thing he says is that he will make sure Haya pays for what she has done. He wanted to protect Riz since she was there for him and was all alone in this world, and while he may have only suggested their marriage so she would become his slave, she was far happier than he ever would have imagined she would be. And even though she knew that Fleo was the one who killed her brother, she still chose to love him. Yet, after all she has done for him, he still failed to protect her. So the only thing on his mind right now is making sure Haya suffers for what she has done. Fleo activates his time magic to return Riz's body to its original state, although it isn't able to bring the dead back to life, and Haya is shocked that a mere human would be capable of using such powerful magic. But she doesn't get much time to think to herself as Fleo punches her in the face. Haya is launched backwards, and she can't believe that someone would dare to punch a being that has mastered all forms of magic, but Fleo doesn't care about her fancy title and stomps her into the ground. She attempts to use Origin of Darkness magic to defend herself against Fleo, but he simply cancels it out and grabs her by the head. She is in utter disbelief at the fact that Fleo is capable of canceling it out, so as he picks her up by her head, she uses appraisal on him and sees that he has an infinite number of stats at his disposal. Fleo then slams her into the wall and gut punches the shit out of her, and no amount of defensive magic she tries can do anything to stop the attacks he is delivering. At the same time, it seems Reyes has woken up and Valerosa asks if she is alright. She says she is fine, but she wonders what happened since there isn't a scratch on her body, even though she should be dead. Valerosa explains that Fleo used his magic to help her recover, but right now he's so overcome by rage that he is beating down Haya nonstop. And if you thought Reeves was going to try and stop him, you'd be wrong because she loves it. It makes her happy that Fleo is being so ruthless for her sake. And physical attacks shouldn't even be able to damage a djinn, but Fleo is powerful enough that rules don't matter and he can probably kill her with his bare fists. However, Riz then remembers the time Fleo spared her life and told her that he doesn't like fighting, and that he would rather not kill an opponent who has surrendered, so she is now having mixed feelings about Slip doing this for her sake. By now, Haya has had the confidence smacked out of her, so as Fleo grabs her neck to finish her off, she begs for him to spare her life, but mercy isn't an option here since Fleo still believes she killed Riz. However, before he can snap Haya's neck, Riz comes running up from behind him and says he should stop. She is really happy seeing him get so angry for her sake, but she can't let him break his moral code because of her. He has a rule about not killing someone who had surrendered to him, and she doesn't want Fleo to stop being himself. Fleo snaps out of it and realizes Riz's body is warm, so she really is alive, at which point the two embrace each other while Haya is still unconscious on the floor. Meanwhile, the princess has just arrived near the town in search of Fleo, but the mages she had asked to use teleportation to bring them here seem to be in poor health since they have just barely recovered from their mana depletion. The princess actually cares for her people, so she asks the guards to make sure the mages are protected while she goes to find Fleo. But it shouldn't take long since they just have to ask around for him. Just then, the collars of sacrifice are immediately destroyed, and the princess knows it could mean only one thing: that the djinn failed to grant the wish it was asked for. Back at the castle, things are looking grim for the blonde loser because the treasury has been surrounded by guards and there is no way for him or Suya to get out. He's out of dumb ideas now, and Suya is scared because if they get themselves caught, they will surely be executed for what they've done. The blonde loser can't believe he got scammed by Haya since she ended up not granting his wish. But then another voice echoes out of the spooky hidden room, and it too is surprised that Haya could fail to grant a wish. The voice then grabs Suya and takes over her body since she hasn't had a physical body in over 100 years. And the first thing she does is change Suya's outfit to something she likes more. Blondie still hasn't figured out what is going on yet, so the woman introduces herself as Damalinas, the Grand Magnus of Midnight. And since Haya failed to grant his wish, she'll give him the great power he desires. Although she never said he was going to like how he gets his power. Damalinas then rides the monster Blondie out of the treasury and is ready to take revenge on all the nobles that sealed her away, but as she exits, she notices the teleportation circle that the princess used to go look for Fleo, and she assumes it must have been used to try and escape because they knew she was coming. So she flies off to eradicate every last noble in the land, including all their successors and descendants. At the same time, Fleo has just healed Haya, and once she wakes up, she immediately begins pleading for forgiveness since she doesn't want to fight Fleo anymore. She realizes she was healed by Fleo. That's only because Riz managed to survive in the end, and now they need to figure out what to do with her since turning her over to the guards wouldn't do much good since she's stronger than them. Fleo thinks they could just seal her away in the castle treasury like before, but Haya doesn't understand how Fleo could possibly know about where she came from. The reason he knows about that is because while Haya was unconscious, he used a spell to look through her memories and saw everything from the moment she was unsealed to to the wish Blondie made to have Fleo killed. He knows she's a djinn that grants wishes, but only at a massive price, so if he just sends her back to the castle, then the same thing might just happen again one day. Therefore, Riz decides that it would be a good idea to make Haya Fleo's servant. Fleo tries to reject the idea, but Riz stops him and mentions that she is well aware that he doesn't want a servant, but they can't trust the castle to keep Haya under control, so they should keep her close by. It also helps that Riz loves how strong Haya is, so Fleo gives in and agrees to let Haya join them. But he asks Riz if she is really alright with it since Haya did kind of kill her back there. Riz is indeed frustrated by it, but in the end, it was her own lack of strength that allowed Haya to defeat her in the first place, so she can't be mad about it. Since Riz isn't angry at Haya, it doesn't make sense for Fleo to stay mad at her forever, so he extends his hand and says that as long as Haya promises to never take another life again, that he is willing to forgive her. Haya is stunned because humans are so unwilling to part with hate and resentment that they have desires that make them willing to sacrifice others. She takes his hand and pledges to serve him with every inch of her body and every ounce of power she possesses, and Fleo apologizes for taking things too far when he was fighting her. However, Haya tells him that there's no need to apologize for, since if she's being honest, she kind of liked it. Riz can sense some Fleo-related shenanigans brewing in Haya's mind, but Haya denies it. That aside, Fleo realizes that he has done quite a bit of damage to the town. But since time manipulation magic worked with bringing Riz back to life, he figures that it could probably restore the town back to its original state as well. However, before he activates it, Haya asks him never to use that kind of magic again. She explains that time manipulation is magic only for individuals within a certain range, but if care is not taken, then there could be discrepancies between those within the range and those outside of it. And that could easily lead to a lot of unforeseen consequences. As long as Haya is the one using it, she's able to narrow down the target to only one individual, but it was never meant to be used by a human. If that's the case, then Fleo asks why he has access to a spell like that, and Haya believes it is because he is a supreme being. As a supreme being, his skills are infinite, and with infinite skills, he is able to use a type of magic known as Epiphany, which allows him to learn any magic and all associated types of magic if it is used against him once. So when Haya attacked him, he was able to learn all the magic that a djinn is able to use, but as she mentioned before, using time manipulation magic is incredibly dangerous, so she asks that he refrain from using it again. Fleo agrees to not use that spell so carelessly, so instead he decides to just use a repair spell to fix all the damage to the town. Later, Fleo returns home and introduces Haya to the rest of the girls, and they are all terrified of the idea that someone as powerful as her will be living here. Haya doesn't really have a home, so Fleo thought she might as well live here, but that doesn't put any one of the others at ease. Valorosa comes in and says the room is ready for Haya, and to calm the others down, she says that Haya probably won't kill them as long as Fleo is around. That night, Fleo has a lot of self-reflection to do since he broke his code of pacifism today and found out that he is some kind of supreme being, but then Valorosa finds him and asks if everything is alright since he is just sitting by himself. He says he's fine, apologizes to Valorosa for everything that happened today since she must have been terribly scared, but she says he has nothing to be sorry for. Fleo says he may have incredible power, but he has no idea how he is supposed to use it, and Valorosa doesn't know how to help him since she wouldn't know what to do either. Recently, she's been realizing that a lot of the people she had thought were enemies are actually really nice, and some people whom she had thought were allies are actually scumbags. So she doesn't even know why she is training to get stronger anymore because she has no idea who she should fight. She is thankful that she met Fleo and Riz because they opened her eyes to the fact that nothing is completely black and white, and talking to her seems to have lifted Fleo's mood a bit. Fleo heads up to his room and he sees Riz lost in thought, so he asks her what's wrong. She doesn't say anything at first, but then she grabs Fleo's hand and flips him over onto the bed before asking him if he's going to go back to his original world. Fleo is confused by the sudden question, but based on what Haya said earlier, Fleo has now acquired all spells that a djinn should be able to use, which means he now has the ability to return to his world if he wants to. But if he is going to leave, Riz wants him to take her too. She doesn't care where they go as long as she is with him, and after realizing how much she wants to be with him, Fleo answers that he won't be going back to his original world. That world still has a lot of discrimination towards demi-humans, so it would be really hard for Riz to live there. But he also has no intentions of leaving her behind either. He asks her if she would like to become his real wife because earlier today when he thought Riz had died, he knows he had said it was just a fake marriage at the start, but he realized that he can't live without her anymore. Riz already thought of him as her real husband, but it makes her happy to hear him say he wants to be with her. So for the first time, the two share a kiss. A lot more was going to happen as well, but then Fleo realized that Haya is standing right behind them. They are both embarrassed, and Reese asks how long she has been there, but Haya has been watching since the moment Fleo sat down on the bed, so she saw everything. Fleo bans Haya from spying on him anymore, but she doesn't see what the issue is since breeding is a totally natural thing. But that doesn't change the fact that he doesn't want to be watched while he's doing it. Even though the gym problem has been solved, the princess is still searching through town for Fleo. But since the only description she has of him is that he is meant to be really powerful, the locals have no idea who it is that she is looking for. She leaves the store disappointed since she hasn't managed to gain any new leads on Fleo's locations. Meanwhile, Fleo is having a delicious meal with everyone, and this time Haya helped as well. Haya says she could have used magic to make everything in an instant, but Reese wanted to do it by hand to make it special. She takes pride in cooking since she's Fleo's wife, but since Haya wants to help out, she can handle the cleaning and laundry from now on. Haya is happy to make herself useful, but this presents a problem for everyone else here since if Haya is handling all the chores now, then they are back to being just a bunch of freeloaders. Although Blossom still has her crops, so at least she is still contributing to the household, and she's going to make sure Haya doesn't take this from her. So she worked even harder than usual with a little help from Side. Byrelli is also trying to make herself useful by taking care of the stables, but it's a little more than she bargained for. Meanwhile, Bolano is having a bit of an existential crisis. She feels like she would be a disappointment to her brother and father since she left the Knight's Order before she could officially become a mage like them. Right now, there's no reason for her to keep trying to grow stronger, but when Fleo teaches her magic, he remains patient with her until she finally understands it, and she doesn't want to waste the effort he is putting into teaching her. Just then, Bolano and Byrelli hear Blossom screaming at the top of her lungs, so they rush outside and discover that Magic Beast has somehow made its way into the fields and is currently tearing them up for no reason. The beast then charges at the two of them, but Bolano's training seems to have paid off as she is able to successfully deploy a magic shield without running out of mana, and thanks to that, they are both unharmed. Valorosa apologizes for causing this mess as she was the one who brought the beast inside. While she was out hunting, she came across it, but it seemed far calmer than a normal one, so she couldn't bring herself to kill it. However, it's going to start attacking people all of a sudden, then she has no choice but to cut it down for everyone's safety. However, Bylary doesn't think that's going to be necessary since she has figured out why the beast went crazy in the first place. She tells Side to transform back into his bunny form so the horse won't be spooked anymore, and then ties some rope to a shovel before tossing it into the horse's mouth and mounting it. With her makeshift bridle, she proceeds to calm the horse down until it is no longer rampaging, and everyone praises her for being able to tame a magical beast so easily. The sense of accomplishment gets Byrelli thinking about something, so she asks Valorosa if they would be allowed to use the land surrounding Fleo's house. The land belongs to the local lord, so they can't really do that, but they could always buy the rights to it from the lord like Fleo did after he moved the house here, and that gives her an idea. Meanwhile, Fleo is out in town with Riz, and she is glad they finally get some alone time with him. Although this isn't exactly a date since he just came here to sell some of his equipment, but that's good enough for Riz. Fleo heads into the store to sell some light armor, and the owner is pleased with how well made it is, but he'd like to add some color to it, so he starts showing to him some light stones that he could use for later batches. While Fleo is handling business, Riz is waiting outside and can hardly contain her excitement over how handsome Fleo looks while working, but then the sky goes dark all of a sudden, which definitely can't be a good sign. The princess and her guards had just met back up when a magic circle appears in the sky, and the blonde monster descends upon the village along with Damalinas, and she's out for blood. By now, Fleo has realized something is wrong, so he meets back up with Reyes, who tells him about the monster that appeared, and while Fleo isn't sure what caused this, he wants to make sure that the townspeople stay safe. Meanwhile, as soon as Damalinas spots the princess, she gets ready to attack, and to their credit, the guards bravely stood their ground against her, but they are sorely outmatched by her power, so Damalinas just uses a small spell to blow them away. Haya arrives on the scene shortly after, having sensed a lot of evil in the area, and since she is here, she informs Fleo that the monster that is going on a rampage is actually a human who was transformed, and the real threat here is the witch in the monster's shoulder, Damalinas. Long ago, she ruled as the most powerful mage in Clyrode, but then she sullied her hands by getting involved with dark magic. Before she could cause any harm, the hero of the time defeated her, but even with her body destroyed, her spirit remained through the sheer force of her hatred, so they had to seal it in a pedestal which coincidentally is the same one Haya's sword seal was placed in. As such, Haya feels partially responsible for Damalinas being freed, even though it was pretty dumb for the royal family to think sealing two powerful threats in the same place was a good idea. She tells Fleo that she would like to handle Damalinas herself, and Fleo has no complaints, but he reminds her that the safety of the people should remain the #1 priority. Meanwhile, Damolinas is laughing in the face of the princess since she's only got one guard left standing, and his legs may be jiggling like crazy, but he deserves a raise for his commitment. The princess recognizes Damolinas from the historical text, so she knows just how screwed she is, and Damolinas wants to savor every moment as she gets her revenge against the royal family. However, before the princess can be turned to mush, Haya casts a fire spell to protect her. Damolinas can't believe Haya would dare to stand in the way of her revenge, but Haya couldn't care less what Damolinas is planning as she's just acting on behalf of her master. Damolinas refuses to back down, so she launches a lightning spell at Haya, but it has no effect as it is stopped with one hand. Haya stands at the pinnacle of magic in this world, and since Damolinas is a being of this world, then regardless of how powerful she may appear, no magic she possesses will ever be able to harm Haya. Since magic doesn't seem to work, Damolinas switches tactics and gets the blonde monster to try stomping on Haya while she also casts another attack spell, but it still does not affect Haya whatsoever. Damolinas is starting to get desperate, so she unleashes all the dark magic she has at her disposal in order to make the blonde monster even bigger so she can cause as much destruction as possible. And it certainly would have been able to do a lot of damage if her spell had lasted more than 3 seconds. But Fleo soon comes running up and says he saw the evil-looking spell being cast, so he decided to use release magic to cancel it out. Haya apologizes to him for not being able to handle Damolinas quickly enough and for causing him so much trouble, but Fleo doesn't hold it against her at all. Haya still wants to make it up to him though, so she asks to be allowed to finish off Damolinas. And once she is given the green light, she uses a spell to suck her soul out of Suya and turn her into a piece of candy, which Haya then swallows without hesitation. Fleo asks it is really alright for her to just eat Damolinas like that, but she says it is perfectly safe since Damolinas is now sealed with her mindscape, where she will be tortured, re-educated for as long as it takes until she changes her ways. That aside, they don't know what to do about the blonde hero since he basically caused this whole mess, but Fleo doesn't want to have to waste his breath talking to him, so they're just going to leave him for the castle guards to handle. Just then, Princess Elizabeth comes up to them and she is glad to have finally found Fleo, so she introduces herself to him and profusely apologizes for all the disrespect he has had to endure from the king and the previous hero. Fleo tells her there is no need to apologize, but he is surprised to find out that they actually fired the blonde hero. The blonde hero had already caused so much trouble, so it was an easy decision for Elizabeth to make. And now that the kingdom is without a hero, she hopes Fleo will be willing to return with her to the castle and become the true hero of the kingdom. Fleo appreciates her asking nicely, but he is still going to have to refuse the responsibility. If she is looking for a hero, then she would be much better off finding someone who won't hesitate to use their power for the sake of humanity. But that person is not going to be Fleo since he doesn't particularly care about humanity here. All he wants is to be able to live in peace with his wife, so he doesn't want to get involved with any political matters at all. Later, Fleo has finally returned home, and he is immediately bombarded by the girls who have a request to ask of him. They were hoping he would consider expanding his territory because Byrelli wants to start catching and rearing magical beasts, and Blossom wants to extend her farmland so she can grow more crops. With the 2 new activities, they'll be able to haul the extra vegetables into town with the horses and sell them for extra profit. Riz likes the idea, but she's concerned that the magical beasts won't obey them since they are just humans, so she thinks it might be better to just get horses instead. Byrelli thought of that, but keeping horses ain't cheap, and the magical beasts will probably turn out peaceful if she lets them roam around in a large open field for a while. Fleo is on board with the idea, so he says he'll go talk with the local domain lord to get his permission, and the girls are thankful. But Byrelli says they would like to do the negotiation and purchasing on their own so they'll be properly contributing to the household. Fleo doesn't have a problem with it, but land is pretty expensive, so he wants to make sure they know how much they are going to spend if they want to buy the land themselves. After some brief calculations, the girls are stunned by the figures they see before them, and they can't believe land is still so expensive all the way out in the countryside. Fleo explains that since he arrived here, demons stopped showing up, so the land prices skyrocketed due to the increased safety. The girls start considering selling all their stuff in order to be able to afford the land, but Fleo tells them there is no need for that since he'll pay for the land himself. He'll be part of the house anyway, so it's only fair that the house owners buy it. He'd be happy if they just took care of the land for him. But the girls don't feel like they would be contributing much in that case, so instead, they settle on a deal to pay Fleo 30% of the profits they make from using his land. The girls are happy with the arrangements, so they all eagerly begin working on the new land once Fleo purchases it. And since they are on the topic of farming, Fleo suggests that they grow something that can't normally be framed in this area to maximize profits. He will be able to control the climate around the crops to some extent, so it should be possible to pull off, but Blossom is against the idea since she believes farming should be done by hand and she doesn't want to accept any extra help from Fleo since this is meant to be her way of paying him back. If she really doesn't want Fleo to get involved, then Haya offers to do the magical climate control instead, but Blossom still refuses on the grounds of magical farming not being natural. Haya isn't going to push the issue, but she does mention that doing it without magic is going to be terribly inefficient, and B'Elanna sides with her, urging Blossom to let Haya use magic on the farm because she is interested to see how it turns out. They notice that she is fully dressed for something, so she tells them that she was just about to head out to the Magic Academy since she was accepted there. She wanted to attend so she could relearn magic from the basics, but after the application test, they thought she was qualified enough to become a teacher there, and it's all because Fleo taught her how to be a lot less of a screw-up with magic. Fleo helped her realize that magic can be used for much more than just combat, so she really wants Blossom to try growing crops with magic as well. And after a little persuasion from Fleo, she finally gives in. Now, everyone is doing their part to contribute to the household income, except Balarosa, who is still technically a freeloader. While watching them, Fleo tells Riz that he has also thought of something he wants to do long-term, and his goal is to open a shop one day. Riz loves the idea and promises to tell all her friends about it, so they'll come on the opening day and she'll make sure they all take human forms since her friends are demons. It's a little off-topic, but Fleo takes the moment to give Riz a gift he had made for her. It's a wedding ring, and he wants Riz to accept it to officially commemorate their marriage, and she happily does so. In other news, the blonde loser has been locked up in the castle dungeon, and he is likely to be executed for his various crimes of breaking into the castle treasury, unleashing national-level threats, and worst of all, having a really annoying face. This was the end of episode 7. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part. In the depths of a dungeon, an adventurer wandered around grinding to gain the experience he needs. But unfortunately for him, he walked straight into a boss battle and he didn't quick save before he got here, so he is screwed. Against a monster like that with the whole introduction animation, he stands zero chance with his subpar equipment and weak skill level. So he just stands there and awaits death, with his only regret being that he never got the chance to become a mithril-ranked adventurer. That day, the adventurer died, but sometime later, his body, or what is left of it, begins to move again. He doesn't understand why he is still alive because he is certain that he definitely got cooked by the boss, but to his horror, he looks in a puddle and discovers he has become even skinnier than he was before. Up on the surface, adventurers usually start their day early, but that's not because they want to, it is because they are poor. The only people who get to sleep until noon are rich people or researchers with a coffee addiction and a sleeping disorder. Though he may be biased because he knows a researcher who would tell him that she sometimes gets so hyper-fixated on her research that she forgets to sleep. He should probably go check on her at some point to make sure she doesn't end up killing herself. With that said, neither of those conditions apply to our MC, Rento, who's currently struggling to pay the rent as a bronze adventurer. He has to wake up early because the quests that are available to be taken care of first come. First served type of deal, so you've got to be there on time if you don't want to get stuck with the terrible ones. But if you don't end up finding any quests that are suitable for you, then you're going to have to go into the labyrinth to make ends meet. And on this day, that is exactly what happened to Rent, so he decided to go into the labyrinth of Moon's Reflection. Most adventurers work in teams, but Rent often works solo. He says there are a number of reasons for this, but the main one is that he sucks at being an adventurer. In fact, is still in bronze rank after having been an adventurer for over 10 years now. As long as he can hunt and sell materials to the guild, he will be able to survive on the money they pay him. So surprisingly, Rent's life is actually pretty stable, especially considering he saved up enough money in case of emergencies, so he's already better than most regular people. He headed into the labyrinth, but on this day, the calm, analytical mind that has allowed him to survive as an adventurer went on vacation because he found something that should have been impossible. As he walked through the labyrinth, which had had every inch of it explored, there was a hole in the wall just sitting there. This wasn't recorded on the map, so Rent believed it must be a new passageway that was created by the labyrinth. This was a major discovery, and also when his brain went on vacation, so against better judgment, he entered the clearly dangerous hidden room. The further in he goes, the more convinced he is that must be an unexplored area, and the only thing going through his mind is the thought of what amazing treasures may be lying here, waiting to be discovered, not realizing that there would probably be something guarding that treasure, but even if there isn't anything he can get, just delivering this information to the guild would be enough to get him a lot of money, so he continues to explore the dungeon without a care in the world. Normally, he would have avoided a place like this, but being blinded by all the rewards he could earn, he ventured into this dangerous place without any backup or method of scouting out danger. And his recklessness only got him into trouble as he came face to face with a dragon. And not just any dragon either, this angel-looking monstrosity was a true dragon. The legends say they are able to take on many forms, and it often differs from what would be considered normal for a dragon. But as it slowly approached Rent, even though he had never actually seen one in person before, he was sure that this must be a dragon. Its presence alone was enough to freeze Rent in place out of fear, but even if he was able to move against a being that stands at the apex of monsters, as a bronze adventurer, Rent stood absolutely no chance. Yet here is still somewhat alive despite being eaten by a dragon, but that only means he must have come out the other side. He's glad to still be alive, but this doesn't really count as being alive. He is now a skeleton, an undead monster. He thinks about going back to town to figure things out. Then he realizes that the second he steps out of the labyrinth, he's going to be captured and purified until there is nothing left. So he decides not to go there for now. He tries to keep calm and think about this rationally so he doesn't end up making any huge mistakes. But first he grabs his sword and gets up. He doesn't feel the presence of that dragon anywhere nearby, but it is better to be safe than sorry, so he leaves the area and heads back into the labyrinth. He continues to wander around looking for an adventurer to talk to, but they are all probably going to a more popular dungeon now. If he waits a few days, he may be able to find a solo adventurer coming from through and ask them for help. But if he wants to do that, he's going to need to be able to talk first, and he doesn't have a mouth anymore. From around the corner, Rhett notices a skeleton just standing there, but once it finally sees him, it still chooses to attack despite Rent being a skeleton as well. Rent readies his sword to swing on the skeleton, but as he charges towards it, he realizes that his transformation into a skeleton has come with one major debuff. All of his gem gains are gone. With his bony structure, he is now unable to even swing his sword without falling over because he is so weak. But fortunately, the same goes for the skeleton that is attacking him as it falls over on itself and loses a leg. While it tries to reattach itself, Rent just laughs and thinks of a strategy to defeat it. While he's no skin and all bones like this, you won't be able to use the swordsmanship skills that require you to have actual muscle, but his decision-making brain comes back from vacation and he remembers that he can use his special ability, Spirit. He manages to activate the ability just as the other skeleton reattached its leg, and they are set to fight again. But this time, while they are still both skeletons, Rent has something to give him an edge. His spirit ability, which enhances his bones and allows him to actually use his sword to fight like he normally would. So as the skeleton runs up to him, he cracks it over the head with the sword and sidesteps before smashing it all together. A skeleton has been defeated and Rent gives a sigh of relief that he managed to survive. But the body of the dead skeleton began to glow to his surprise and green energy flowed into him from it. Rent notices that the energy he has expended in that fight had been replenished in an instant, so he wonders if this might be a mysterious attribute that monsters have. He remembers his researcher friends talking about how monsters are able to become more powerful with age and experience, but is on a different level from what is possible for a human to do. A skeleton would always be a skeleton, but in some rare cases it will be able to evolve into a ghoul. That is because of existential evolution, something that she was currently researching at the time. Brent thinks he can use this to his advantage since ghouls have flesh and almost look exactly like a human, so if he were able to transform into one, he might also be able to get back into the city if he disguises himself with a robe and a mask or something. So he now has his new goal of slaying monsters in this dungeon and becoming a ghoul. Back with his researcher friend, she's feeling a little lonely since Rent isn't showing up to her house like he usually does, but she accepts that he won't be coming today, so she goes to get dinner ready. In the labyrinth, Rent has successfully killed 5 skeletons so far and is steadily gaining experience and agility as he levels up. It also seems like the light that he absorbs has some kind of recovery effect, so he is able to keep using his spirit indefinitely. With how well things are going for him, Rent decides it may be time to try challenging one of the stronger monsters in the labyrinth. He walks through the halls until he comes face to face with a slime, and though they are resistant to physical attacks, they can easily be defeated with magic. But unfortunately, Rent is not talented enough to have offensive magic at his disposal. At best, he can only use basic spells for everyday activities, so he is forced to use physical attacks to defeat it. There are 2 methods to accomplish this. One, he can either break through the slime's core that is constantly moving around in its body, or he can destroy the gelatinous body to the point that it is beyond regeneration. But he isn't strong enough to do that normally and is going to have to go all out just to not get himself dissolved by the slime. The slime launches 3 acid balls at Rent in an attempt to dissolve him, but he dodges and goes in for a strike, and luckily, he managed to hit the slime's core and defeat it. Back on the surface, a guild receptionist gets asked if she can help a new adventurer find a good party to team up with. The girl is inexperienced, but she is good with handling a sword, so she isn't completely unneeded. Unfortunately, there weren't any parties that were a good fit for her, so the receptionist was planning to ask Rent to take care of her in the meantime, but he hasn't returned to the town since the previous day, which is out of character for him. Back in the labyrinth, Rent is taking a break, but he realizes that he doesn't get sleepy anymore and he has no appetite since he has no stomach. Since he can basically run on a broke college student's routine, he tries fighting through the entire night, but even that wasn't enough to get him his evolution. Still, it's not all bad since when he first woke up as a skeleton, his physical abilities were much worse than they were as a human. But now that he has slain a ton of monsters, he is basically back to how he was before and has all the abilities he had from before he died. He's even able to use divinity despite being an undead. That wasn't expected, but it works out well for him as he uses it to keep the bread he brought good for a few more days in case he ever needs to eat. After that, he gets back to his objective of becoming a ghoul and decides he will keep his plan of killing monsters little by little and moving up in difficulty. Right now, he can handle 1 or 2 fairly easily. 3 might be a little tough, and if he sees 4 at once, he's going to have to run, but it's not likely that the monsters will move around in such large packs. Even as an undead, Ren is still really weak. He spent 10 years as an adventurer and went nowhere with his career, even though he's able to use spirit, mana, and divinity, which is rare for a person. He is not particularly strong in any of them. So he remained as weak as ever. Deep down, he knew he wasn't cut out to be an adventurer, and most people would probably have quit after a few years of being stuck at the same bronze rank. But he never stopped trying to become a better adventurer. He trained every day and asked his friend to help him study monsters and magic. He even took on all manners of quests, no matter how small they may have been. He had a dream to become a mithril adventurer in his lifetime, a level at the top of the adventuring world, which not even the naturally gifted could easily reach. It is reserved for only the most powerful adventurers, capable of saving a kingdom on their own, and he isn't going to give up on that dream just because he has become a skeleton. He continues going through the dungeon and killing monsters, soon becoming even more powerful than he was as a human. And after killing one more slime, it finally happens. He feels something strange happening to his body as the energy flows into him and all of his muscles grow back. He has become a ghoul. He is really excited even if his face isn't able to show the expression. He now has skin again, even if it is dried up and decaying, but if he keeps going at it, he may eventually turn into a vampire, and by that point, he will look exactly like a human and can return to his normal life. But for now, having more than bones means he can talk again, although it is going to take some practice to learn to speak well again. Ever since he evolved into a ghoul, he had regained his muscle back and can now move better than he could while he was a skeleton. Now he can strengthen not only his body but also his sword, and the difference is clear as he is now able to easily defeat 2 goblins in one go. Elsewhere in the dungeon, Ren finds a rookie fighting a skeleton, and the girl just barely manages to beat it. Ren is excited to finally see another human after such a long few days, but he also realizes that he can't carelessly approach her, since she would either try to kill him or just run away. He doesn't recognize her, so he assumes she must be new to this whole adventuring thing, since he knows basically every adventurer in the town. Ren continues to follow the girl through the dark dungeon and realizes she is heading in the direction of that dragon cave that killed him. He has to find a way to stop her, but luckily, a skeleton spawns behind her and diverts her attention. She begins to attack, and Ren can tell that she has received good training, but she's pretty weak since she needs to land several hits in a row in order to kill the skeleton. She gets herself backed into a corner and has the skeleton closing in on her. Ren can no longer sit still and watch her embarrass herself, so he steps up to save her before she gets deleted by the skeleton. As he approaches, the skeleton recognizes him as the bigger threat, so it turns around to face him. But Ren is screaming internally at the girl because she has a clear shot to backstab it right there. Take the shot. Realizing she isn't going to be of any help, Ren takes matters into his own rotten flesh-covered hands and one-shots the skeleton. After that is taken care of, Ren tries to approach the girl, but she is understandably freaked out to have a ghoul approached so casually. To try to calm her down, Ren starts saying he doesn't intend to hurt her, while also dropping his sword. He tries to explain to the girl that he is the adventurer Ren, but then she asks why he looks like this now. He explains that he got killed by a dragon, but she just wants to confirm that he isn't going to try and eat her or anything. Ren swears that he has no intention of doing so, but he asks that she help him out with something if she's willing. He wants her to buy him some clothes because he would like to go back to the town, something like a robe so he can hide his body. He gives her his pouch of money and tells her she can keep the rest if she buys him the clothes that he is asking for. The girl now understands that Ren truly isn't trying to hurt her, so she introduces herself as Rena and swears that she will repay him for his help saving her from that skeleton. However, she still keeps her sword pointed towards him the entire time as she leaves. Ren doesn't really like how cautious she is being around him. but that is probably how an adventurer should act in a situation like this. Come to think of it, a proper adventurer would also probably just report a situation like this to the Adventurers Guild rather than actually help him. But he doesn't think Rena would betray him. As Rena returns to town, she immediately goes back to the guild receptionist who had been worried sick about her since she didn't come back from the dungeon on time. Rena says she is fine, but a lot of stuff happened, so she would like to ask about some. Later on in the labyrinth, Rent is fighting a slime and can tell that he is much stronger than he was as a human. He is much more powerful and can use his body to its full potential now more than he ever could. Now, if only his face did look like a wrinkled nutsack. From the dungeon entrance, Rent hears Rena calling out to him, and he is honestly surprised that she actually came back for him. As he approaches her, she notices him and immediately draws her sword out of fear because she isn't sure that he's the same ghoul she met earlier, but after Rent confirms that it is actually him, and he seems to have gotten himself past preschool levels of talking after a lot of practice so Rena can understand him better. Back on topic, she tells him that she has brought the clothes he asked for, as well as his change, which she goes to set down beside the bag, but Rent gets a little too close, so she starts backing away in fear again. But she apologizes and tells him that she is a little scared of him, but she will eventually get used to it, so he shouldn't feel bad. Ren tells her it's fine and goes to look through the clothes that she brought for him. It is absolutely perfect. Rena even went the extra mile and bought him a pair of boots and gloves to hide the rest of his body. She's so considerate that it's enough to make a grown man cry, but not Rent, because he still doesn't have tear ducts. Rent tries on the clothes and he looks cool as heck with that outfit. He loses some visibility, but that is the price you have to pay for looking so cool. Although there is still the problem of his nutsack face, so he needs to do something about it before he can return to town. Rena had thought of this as well and bought a mask for Rent to hide his face, but as he tries it on, it gets sucked into his face and he can't seem to pull it off. This mask clearly has cursive binding on it, so Rena apologizes for bringing it to him. Now that she really thinks about it, she should have known better than to trust the back alley stall. It was also pretty suspicious that the mask was so cheap, but she was blinded by the Black Friday savings. She apologizes again, but she did check the item for a curse before bringing it here and didn't react, so it must be a curse that only activates when it is put on. If it is a curse, then maybe Rent can dispel it with the divinity he has. Rena is surprised that he can use divinity even as an undead monster, but the power he has wasn't enough for him to get rid of the curse. It doesn't look like he will be able to take off the mask anytime soon, but it doesn't really matter since he needed to hide his face anyway. Now that Rent looks less undead, Rena suggests that they can return to town together, so they both get on a carriage to ride to Malt. On the way there, Rena tells Rent that she registered to become an adventurer in the capital, but there were too many skilled adventurers there, so she was forced to leave due to the skill gap. She came out Malt because it was much more newbie-friendly than most towns. Plus, it had 2 labyrinths nearby, so that was an added bonus. Rent agrees that coming to Malt was a good decision for her to make, but he is surprised that she was willing to come all the way out to the countryside despite being a city kid. They get to the town gate, but Ren is hesitant to go through since almost everyone here knows him, so they'll be able to tell that something is wrong if he shows them his ID. If that's the case, then she suggests that they go to the west gate since that one normally isn't used as much. They get to the west gate and are asked to present their identification to enter. They do so and are allowed passage, but the guards take issue with Ren's cool, emo outfit and start hassling him to show his face. Rena comes up with a story on the spot and tells the guards that Rent was badly injured in the dungeon, so bought a mask to hide his scars. However, the mask turned out to be cursed, so he can't take it off now. Rent even offers to let them try to take the mask off if they don't believe him, so after confirming that it is cursed, they feel kind of bad for hassling an injured man and let him go through. Once inside the town, Rena is excited to go around and do things with Rent, but just like that, he went to get the milk and disappeared. From a nearby rooftop, Rent watches Rena, and he can tell that she's going to become a great adventurer, so when he looks a bit more human, he will come back and apologize to her. For now, he has to go find his friend so she can help him figure things out, so that night, Rent shows up to Lorraine's house and finds her sleeping on the couch. Even while sleepy, she can tell it is Rent from the way he acts, but there is definitely something wrong here. So she decided to play a little prank and act like she was sleeping, but after seeing what happened to him, it's a little too late to say it's just a prank, bro. Lorraine has studied monsters all her life, but she has never heard anything about someone getting eaten by a dragon and turned into an undead after they get shit out. Coming from anyone else, she wouldn't believe a single word that was just said, but since it is coming from Rent and he currently looks like one of the malnourished children that Nestle uses for labor, she's inclined to accept his statements as fact. Ren appreciates that Lorraine isn't freaking out over his new look and is just thinking about it calmly, but it does feel like she thinks of him slightly more as a test subject than a friend. After pondering for a bit, she turns to Rent and asks if he really is the same person. And that's a fair question, since even though he still has his memories and thinks the same, there is no guarantee that he is actually the same. For now, though, he acts normal enough for Lorraine to trust him, so she asks what he intends to do from here on out. Rent tells her that he wants to keep being an adventurer, since while he may have died already, his dream of becoming a mithril adventurer lives on. However, he can't show up to the Adventurers Guild looking like this, so to continue adventuring, he needs Lorraine to accept quests for him. Plus, he would need somewhere to stay since he can't go back to his inn either, so Lorraine offers her home to him. In exchange, all she asks is that he helps her with his research. Rhett knows exactly what that means when he is dealing with Lorraine, so he makes it clear that she isn't allowed to dissect him or anything. She tells him that there is no need to worry since she never intended to do that in the first place, though she may take a bit of his flesh for science. Later that day, Ren is doing some cleaning to help out when Lorraine comes back with some money in hand. He had asked her to help him sell the items he collected while he was in the dungeon, but she decided to just pay him for it directly, since this way she won't have to pay the guild's fees. Isn't tax evasion great? Ren thanks her for the help, and now that he has some money to use, he announces that he will be going to the blacksmith to get a new sword. Rent walks through the streets, happy to be able to move around freely again, but he is still subject to the judging stares of the people that find his look to be terrifying. He pulls his hood down and just keeps moving until he gets to the blacksmith, but the receptionist lady there is also frightened by him. He apologizes for looking so unsightly, and the lady realizes that she is being really rude, so she ignores how he looks and asks what he would like her to do for him. Red tells her that he wants to have his sword repaired, so the lady takes a look at it, and from the damage it has taken, she can tell that he knows how to handle a sword well. It looks like he can also use spirit too, which Rent confirms, adding that he can use mana and divinity as well. The lady is surprised, as it is really rare for anyone to be able to use all three. In fact, there's so only one other person whom she has ever seen who is able to use all three, which coincidentally is also Rent. He asks her not to make a big deal out of it since he would like to avoid too much attention, so the lady promises not to speak a word about it to anyone else. Rent pulls out the money Lorraine paid him and asks if this will be enough to have a new sword made for him. So the lady takes a look and says it should do the job, but is going to take some time for it to be finished since their blacksmith is very thorough in his work. Rent says he is fine with the wait time, so whenever the sword is ready, they should contact Lorraine to get a hold of him. Meanwhile, Lorraine is reading up on the information that is available about ghouls. They are lower-class undead monsters, and there have been cases reported where a powerful monster was able to turn people into undead. But in those cases, the people seem to have lost all personality and human emotion with their transformation. However, that clearly isn't the case with Rent right now. She knows that something about him must have changed. He still feels like the same old Rent she knew. We get a flashback to when Lorraine was younger and Rent was just a newbie adventurer as she took out a quest which required a bit of traveling. A man called out to her and asked that she takes Rent along with her so he can gain some experience as an adventurer. Thus, they went out into the forest where Lorraine began searching for some herbs. She was having trouble finding them, so she started thinking that the information she had been given may have been wrong. The world was a really boring place for her at the time since she was just too good at life. She became the youngest person to ever receive the title of Great Doctor, but she didn't care about her achievement, was starting to get tired of being surrounded by adults all the time. Great Doctors get the perk of being able to sign up as adventurers and start at silver rank, so for no other reason than she was bored, Lorraine decided that she would go out and become an adventurer. She finally spotted one of the plants she needed and excitedly began to harvest it. Afterwards, she calls Rent over so she can put her harvest in the bag, but then she sees that Rent beat her out by at least 10 times in plant gathering. She is about to ask him to tell her how he managed this, but Rent cuts her off because he notices something is off. There is a goblin currently staring them down, and it is about to fire an arrow. So Rent tells for Lorraine to use a fire spell to take it down before it can do any damage to them. Lorraine does as he says, and a huge fireball is launched, destroying the goblin and somehow not starting a forest fire in the process. Lorraine is shaken by the experience but tries to play it off by saying she has been in many situations like this before, although she had several people guarding her back then. That is when she realized that Rent wasn't sent with her as training, but rather because the people at the guild were worried that she wouldn't be able to handle herself if things got dangerous. However, Rent is still a new adventurer, so she wonders how he could be so knowledgeable, so Rent recounts what he was told. If you want to become a good adventurer, then you need to learn to read and write, as well as learn about plants and monsters and anything else possible. And just like that, Lorraine was raised up. She asks Rent if he could teach her everything he knows about adventuring from then on, and since then, she's been by Rent's side as he tries to become a mithril adventurer. Meanwhile, Ren has finalized the details of the sword he once made, so he says goodbye to the blacksmith and the receptionist. Before he goes, he has handed a replacement sword for him to use while his main one is being made. As he leaves, the blacksmith and receptionist talk to each other, and it seems they realize that the guy they were talking to had to be Ren. After all, there aren't many people who can use all three attributes and also have a close relationship with Lorraine, but he is clearly in a bit of trouble. They think he has been cursed, but don't understand why he didn't try to come to them for help and instead kept his identity a secret. The blacksmith thinks that it may not be that he doesn't trust them, but he just isn't the kind of person to cause trouble for others even if he needs help. For now, though, it seems like he will keep coming to their shop, so they'll get another chance to see him again. That evening, Rent made dinner for Lorraine, but while she greatly enjoyed the meal, Rent wasn't able to enjoy it since ghouls don't get hungry at all. This brings up the topic Lorraine wanted to discuss. She spent all day combing through every book she had on his situation, but there isn't much info available. All she can tell is that Rent's case is special, which is probably why he is able to evolve in the first place. She asks what he plans to evolve into next, but he has no idea what it is going to be. All he wants is to look as human as possible so he can live like he used to. So to do that, he is going to need to head back into the labyrinth and defeat more monsters. In the labyrinth, there is a man fighting a slime, and it is very clear that he has no idea what he is doing as he is about to get himself dissolved. However, Ren happened to be passing by and saved the guy from certain doom, and immediately after he starts walking off. In the labyrinth, it is an adventurer's responsibility to make sure they come back alive, so you are not obligated to help others if they are in danger. There are even some ill-intentioned individuals who would pretend to be hurt just to lure you into a trap and rob you. The man catches up to Ren and asks that he let him join him while he goes through the labyrinth. As you can probably tell by now, this guy is new to adventuring and can't take down a slime, but he is a chef in malt and is currently drowning in debt, so he needs to find a way to pay back 15 gold by next week. He turned to adventuring to make some quick cash, but most parties rejected him because he was inexperienced. So he just needs Ren to give him a chance, and he promises that he will do everything within his power to make himself useful. Ren tells the man that he is busy, and besides, this dungeon has already been explored so much that your chances of finding anything valuable are incredibly low. Ren suddenly realizes that there might be a way to help this guy make the money he needs, so he decides to let him tag along and shows him the way to the new room in the dungeon where he died. The guy thinks he could make a fortune just by giving this information to the guild, but he knows Ren is the one who actually found it, so he can't take credit for it. Ren tells him that it's fine for him to take the credit since he needs the money anyway, but he wants the man to stick around with him while he keeps exploring the hidden passage. They come up on a hidden passage, and Ren has the experience to know that you never trust an empty room in a labyrinth, but the man has no such sense. He steps straight into a teleportation circle and gets sent off to who knows where instantly. Now the smart thing to do would be for Ren to ditch the guy and act like he never met him, but he wouldn't be the MC if he did that, so he follows through the circle and finds the man laid out on the floor and a giant skeleton monster staring him down. Rhett looks over to the unconscious man and realizes that he needs to act fast if he wants there to be any hope of him surviving. However, as he tries to bring the skeleton down by striking at its leg, he is unable to do any damage to its bones. If spirit energy isn't able to damage it, Rhett decides to use his magic energy instead, but that is ineffective as well. Looking at his situation, the exit to the room has disappeared, so he is likely currently fighting the boss. And if that is the case, then he won't be able to escape until he has defeated it. Terrible luck considering he didn't want to deal with this, but since it is an undead skeleton, he should be able to damage it if he uses divinity. He's not sure if his sword will be able to hold up against his strikes, but he uses divinity and slashes at the skeleton's leg, this time severing it completely and forcing it down to the ground. And with the skeleton grounded, Rent leaps on top of it before splitting its skull in two. After the fight is over, the man wakes up to find Rent healing him. All he remembers is being attacked by a huge skeleton and being knocked out, but doesn't look like he needs to worry about the skeleton anymore since it's laid out in pieces on the floor over there. He is amazed that Ren was able to take down a monster of that size, and when he is shown the size of the crystal that came from it, he is even more impressed. Ren offers to let him just have the mana crystal so he can pay off his debt, but under some conditions, of course. The man doesn't know how he could possibly be of any use to a powerful adventurer like Ren, so he shows the man his arm and tells him that since he looks like this because a monster got to him, he can't go into the guild or regular shops without scaring the people, so he would like him to do those things for him. The man doesn't think it is fair to Rent for him to give up this valuable gem in exchange for some errands, so Rent adds another condition that he is allowed to eat for free at his restaurant when he gets it back up and running. The man breaks down in tears from the kindness Rent has shown him in both saving his life and giving him the means to get his restaurant back. Rent tells him to get up so they can leave the labyrinth, but the man doesn't know how they are meant to get out of here since there is no door present. It seems that regular people can't see it, but a magic teleportation circle is clearly visible to Rent from where he is standing. Even though he doesn't see anything there, the man trusts Rent's word and goes over to the teleportation circle, leaving Rent behind in the room. Rent would like to go on ahead in the labyrinth, but with how much has happened today, it's going to have to be another time. The man takes Rent to his restaurant where his wife, Isabella, had been anxiously awaiting his return. She was so worried he would end up dead in the dungeon, and he nearly did. But luckily Rent was there to bail him out. He tells his wife the great news that Rent offered him this huge magic gem to clear their debt, but his wife is skeptical because there's no such thing as free money. As hard as it may be to believe, Rent was actually generous enough to help him out in his time of need. But it's not completely free as the man now has to help Rent out when he needs it. His wife worries some more that he might end up doing some dangerous stuff, but he assures her that Rent only needs him to run errands for him. He was also promised unlimited free food at the restaurant, but even that doesn't compare to the value of the gem Rent has given them. They are happy to finally be able to get their life back on track without having to sell their kidneys. But first, they both sincerely thank Rent for all he has done for them. The man introduces himself as Loris and asks for the name of his savior. So Rent introduces himself properly but asks that Loris keep his name a secret. Loris swears to never tell anyone and thanks Rent once more as he leaves, but something is not right with Rent right now. As he's walking down an alleyway, he thinks to himself that he was hoping Loris would turn out to be a criminal or something, so it wouldn't have mattered if he died in the dungeon or not. His mind is growing cloudy and he isn't able to think clearly anymore, so with Lorraine's house in sight, he walks in. Lorraine is oblivious to the shift in Rent's personality, so when he suddenly hugs her, she thinks he has finally caught on to the hints she's been dropping. If only this had happened while he still had his wiener. Unfortunately, while Rent was definitely making an advance, it wasn't the kind she would have hoped for as while hugging her. Rent's mask changes for him to free his mouth, and he takes a huge bite out of her neck. This is when she realizes that Rent might not be in his right mind, so she calls out to him to find out his consciousness is still in there somewhere. Rent reacts, so she's at least reassured that he is still human.
Magma core always warms my heart. Hazard 5, it's tough, but I'm tougher. Magma core always warms my heart. I just like making things go boom. Hazard 5, it's tough, but I'm tougher. Magma core always warms my heart. I just like making things go boom. Hazard 5, it's tough, but I'm tougher. Magma core always warms my heart. I just like making things go boom. Hazard 5, it's tough, but I'm
count.
Loot bug, open! Loot bug pop!
The surface is too packed for the supply pod to land. Please clear it.
This one makes me want to be a better dwarf. I'm having an epic vision. Just what the doctor ordered.
Swarm detected. Get ready. They'll be with you shortly.
Yeah, give me some sugar. Smart rifle, smart dwarf.
Well done. You got them all.
It'll do. I got it in the mouth! Don't mind if I do.
You got a supply pod launch. Stand clear of the impact
Heads up.
zone.
Attack! I can't get enough of this rare stuff. Loot bug eliminated! Your history!
The bugs are going insane. Move.
I'm a better dwarf than yesterday. Think you could kill me? Well, think again. Points for style. I'm having an epic vision.
The bugs are going insane. Move.
Go back to hell! You ugly son of a bitch! Feel much better now?
Time is running out, Miner. The bugs are getting worse.
Might as well. Lock it in. Overclock. My favorite.
Gotta move it, Miner. The bugs are gunning for
Your
you.
history.
Time's running out, Miner. The bugs are getting worse.
Feeling much better. Bloody hell, you're hot to kill. Tough choice.
The threat level just went up.
Frickin' anti-aircraft gun! Hell yeah!
Running out of bugs. More are on the way.
on this, you
Well done. Objective completed. Drop pod has arrived. Get there now. It will leave
That's
without
the
you.
one. This is my pick. Cowabunga! This'll do. Ooh. Dial it in.
The drop pod is about to leave. Get your ass moving, miner.
I'll take it. Take that!
Stage 1 cleared. Be sure to spend your gold and nitro before the next stage.
I rarely pick one of these. This one suits me best. I want another go! Now this is a rare treat. I can't get enough of this rare stuff. This.
Get to work. There's aliens to be killed and gold to be mined.
I've got a bad feeling about this one. Feeling much better now. Just the upgrade I was looking for.
Well done. You got them all. The scanner just lit up like a Christmas tree. We got a swarm incoming.
Loot bug looted.
The swarm is heading your way. Load up.
Took out a loot bug. Feels rare. Feels right. I needed
We got
that.
supplies ready for you. Clear the landing zone of obstacles, please.
Let's show them some pain! Never gone wrong with the stubby. You don't see these every day. This one almost makes it too easy. It's a little extra special.
Time's running out, Miner. The bugs are getting worse.
Gotta have it.
Nicely done.
Stupids! You don't see these every day.
Drop pod has arrived. Get there before the timer runs
Bingo!
out. The drop pod is not going to hang around.
Super kill! This one's so me. This one almost makes it too easy.
Time's ticking, Miner. Move it!
This makes my whole life better.
That elite never stood a chance. I will see to it there is a beer on the house when you make it back. If you make it
I'm
back.
growing stronger. I can't get enough of this rare stuff. Gonna roll the dice on this one. I always waste my money on Nope. Try again. This one makes me want to be a better dwarf. I'm clocking it to 11. I rarely pick one of these.
You have your objectives. Get it done, Miner.
God damn it, there's a pebble in my food. Cowabunga!
The swarm is heading your way. Load up.
Took out a loot box.
We got too much clutter for the supply pod to land. Do something.
This is the smart pick.
Objective completed.
Let's clear them out.
Prepare to fight for your life. A big swarm is approaching. Swarm detected. Get ready. They'll be with you shortly.
This'll do.
Box of goodies headed your way, Miner.
goes my yearly bonus.
It's dreadnought time, Miner. Find the damn thing, destroy it.
There is nitro over here. This one makes me want to be a better dwarf. Hell yeah! I'm gonna do something epic with this.
Supply pod active. Locate the LZ and prep it for landing.
You could fry half a city with this puppy. Yeah!
There you go. Delivery of one resupply for
What
you,
a
Miner.
shot! Don't mind if I do. Don't mind if I do. I'm gonna go with this.
Prepare to fight for your life. Big swarm is approaching.
I want it.
Objective completed. Excellent job.
This'll do. Loot bug eliminated. Beat it. This one's so me. Put a bit of extra kick in it. You want some more? See you later! Lock it in! Loot bug looted! Feels rare, feels right. Got it right between the eyes!
Threat level keeps increasing. You need to work faster.
Rock 'em and shock 'em! This'll do! I'll take this one. This will help me work harder. Let's show them some pain! Go to hell! Bring the pain! Just the upgrade I was looking for. This one!
Objective completed, Miner. Get to the drop pod before it heads back to orbit.
Dibs! I'm gonna be the best survivor. I want it!
Stage 1 cleared. Be sure to spend your gold and nitro before the next stage.
I'm raring to try this out. More options! Give me that! I can't get enough of this rare stuff! This makes my whole life better!
There's work to be done. Up and at 'em, Miter.
Let's get the job done!
Took out a loot bug! Hell yeah!
Swarm detected. Get ready. We'll be with you shortly. Prepare to fight for your life. The big swarm is approaching.
Putting up a sentry! Yes! We got the Hoarder! You don't see these every day! Looking like a hot one to Hazard 5. It's tough, but I'm... Time to blow up stuff.
This is it. Either the dreadnought goes or we send in another dwarf. You'll be on your own in there.
Muted.
Make it count.
This works! I'll take this one. Dial it in. Go!
Can't land the supply pod. Impact zone is cluttered. Get it fixed.
Give me the electric fence! Loot bug gas! Ew, never felt better. Loot bug, open! One down!
The scanner just lit up like a Christmas tree. We got a swarm incoming.
Nice. Take it. I die a little inside every time I have to take out a... Woo, baby! I'm not scared of you! See you in hell!
Exemplary work. You've achieved your objective in record time.
Go to hell! Hell yeah! One!
We got a launch. Supplies inbound.
Eat your maker, crepe! This one's the best! See you later! Gotta have it! New bug eliminated! This will help me work harder!
Speed it up, Miner.
Say hello
The
to my
bugs
little
grow
friend.
stronger.
Bingo!
My scanner is overloading, Miner. Get a move on.
Go to hell! Let's show them some pie! Never felt better. This makes my whole life better. Yoink!
Threat level keeps increasing. You need to work faster.
Nothing better than breach cutting. Swallow this! It's for me! Overclock says it's time to kill! This will help me work harder! This works! This one shoots me best! I rarely go for this one!
The threat level keeps rising.
Swallow this!
You have to move, Miner.
Go to hell! One down! I already feel strong. Pretty sweet.
We got bug sign the likes of which I've never seen.
Shoot it in the face! Give me the little chubby. Lad! Here, have a bullet in the
Quota
butt.
satisfied. The drop pod is arriving. Get moving. It won't hang around.
Dial it in. I can't get enough of this rare stuff. I'm growing stronger.
Got it right between the eyes!
Diving deeper. Taking you to stage 2.
This is gonna help me be a perfect dwarf. If it looks good, it shoots better. Everyone knows that. Let's shake it up. Dial it in. This is gonna change everything. It's a little extra special.
Your mission is clear. Get to it.
This is gonna be a walk in the park!
I'll take this one.
A swarm is heading your way. Load up.
Sorry, little brother. Your own fault for being full of good. Yes, please.
Big swarm detected. Buggerman, get ready.
Dibs.
You ugly son of a bitch!
I'm a better dwarf than yesterday. Now we're cooking with gas.
Swallow this!
Too much crap in the way. Supplies can't land. Clear it out, miner.
I'm growing stronger. This is perfect for my build.
Vaporize! Vaporize!
I just became a better dwarf.
Think you could kill me? Well, think again!
This will help me work harder.
I'm not scared of you! Oh yeah!
It's mine. I'm gonna go with this.
See you in hell!
I already feel stronger.
That's all you got, you slippery shit! This one's for Carl!
Sure, why not?
exemplary work. You've achieved your objective in record time.
Ain't dead! Pop the loop bomb. Let's get the middle.
Time's running out, Miner. The bugs are getting worse. Good work. There's a resupply on the way.
Heads up! Now this is a rare
Objective
treat.
completed, Miner. Get to the drop pod before it heads back to orbit.
This will help me work harder. It's just a flesh wound.